If you asked most Christians to describe heaven, they would describe something the Bible never actually promises: clouds, harps, floating spirits, an eternal worship service that never ends, disembodied souls drifting through a vague spiritual dimension for all of eternity. That is not what the Bible describes. It is what culture, movies, and centuries of bad theology have projected onto the Bible, and most Christians have accepted the projection without ever checking the source. Today, we are going to look at 7 specific things the Bible says about heaven that most Christians have completely wrong. Some of these will surprise you, some of them will challenge everything you assumed, and all of them will bring you closer to the heaven God actually promised, which is far more real, far more physical, and far more extraordinary than the version most people carry in their heads. The first thing most Christians have completely wrong about heaven is where they will spend eternity. Most believers assume they will die and go to heaven and stay there forever, but the Bible describes heaven as an intermediate destination, not the final one. Revelation 21 verses 1 through 2 describes the actual eternal destination with stunning clarity. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Coming down out of heaven. The holy city does not stay up in heaven waiting for you to come to it. It comes down to a renewed, restored, physical earth. Romans 8 verse 21 confirms that creation itself is waiting for this restoration. The creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. Creation set free, not destroyed, not abandoned, not replaced with a spiritual dimension. Set free. God does not throw away what He made. He redeems it. The eternal home of every believer is not a cloud in the sky. It is a renewed, physical earth with a real city, real structures, and the tangible presence of God dwelling among His people permanently. That is not a downgrade from what you imagined. It is an upgrade so significant that most Christians have never been taught it. Your eternal home is not a cloud. It is a restored earth with a real city where God Himself lives among His people. The Bible describes something far more physical and far more glorious than floating in the sky forever. The second thing most Christians have completely wrong about heaven is what they will be like when they get there. Most believers picture themselves as disembodied spirits, transparent, floating, ghost-like beings drifting through eternity. But the Bible promises the exact opposite. 1 Corinthians 15:42 through 44 describes the resurrection body with specific physical detail. It is sown a perishable body, it is raised imperishable. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. Raised, not discarded. The body is transformed, not eliminated. Jesus Himself proved what the resurrection body looks like after His own resurrection. In Luke 24:39, He told His disciples, "See my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Touch me and see, for a spirit does not have flesh and bones as you see that I have." He had flesh, He had bones, He could be touched. He ate fish with them in Luke 24:42 through 43. He walked with them on the road to Emmaus. He was physical, tangible, and recognizable, and that is the model for what every believer will become. Philippians 3:21 confirms that your future body will be like His. He will transform our lowly body to be like His glorious body. Your eternity is not spent as a ghost. It is spent in a glorified, immortal, physical body, more real than the one you have right now, not less. Jesus ate fish after His resurrection. He had flesh and bones. He could be touched. That is the model for your eternal body. Not a ghost, not a spirit, but something more physical and more alive than anything you have ever experienced. The third thing most Christians have completely wrong about heaven is what they will do when they get there. The most common image of eternity is an unending worship service, standing in a choir, singing the same songs forever with no break and no variation. And while worship will absolutely be part of eternity, it is not the only thing God has planned. Revelation 22:5 describes a responsibility that most believers have never been taught about heaven, and they will reign forever and ever. Reign, governing, leading, administering. The redeemed will not sit passively in a permanent pew. They will actively participate in the governance of God's new creation. Luke 19:17 records Jesus describing the reward for faithfulness in terms of increased responsibility, not permanent rest. "Well done, good servant. Because you have been faithful in a very little, you shall have authority over 10 cities." Authority over cities. That is active, meaningful, purposeful work, not sitting on a cloud strumming a harp. Isaiah 65:21-22 describes life on the new earth in terms that are startlingly practical. "They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit." Building, planting, creating, enjoying the work of your hands without the curse, without the frustration, without the futility that currently marks all human labor. Eternity is not an endless religious meeting. It is the life you were always designed to live, finally lived without the brokenness that has limited everything until now. God did not design you for an eternal choir practice. He designed you for meaningful, creative, purposeful work in a world without the curse. Heaven is not retirement from life. It is the beginning of the life you are always built for. The fourth thing most Christians have completely wrong about heaven is the belief that everyone there receives the same reward. Most believers assume that once you are in, the experience is identical for everyone. But the Bible consistently teaches that there are degrees of reward based on how you lived your life on earth. 1 Corinthians 3:12-15 describes a testing process that every believer will undergo. Quote, "If anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work will become manifest, for the day will disclose it, because it will be revealed by fire, and the fire will test what sort of work each one has done. If the work that anyone has built on the foundation survives, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, though he himself will be saved." Saved, but with loss. The person is in heaven, but some of what they built on earth did not survive the fire. 2 Corinthians 5:10 confirms that every believer will stand before Christ for this evaluation. "For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may receive what is due for what he has done in the body, whether good or evil." What is due, meaning proportional to what was done. This is not salvation by works. Salvation is by grace through faith, but within salvation there are rewards, and those rewards vary based on faithfulness, obedience, sacrifice, and how you used the time, resources, and opportunities God gave you. The way you live today is directly connected to the reward you receive in eternity. That should change the way you approach every single day you have left. Heaven is not a participation trophy. Your faithfulness on earth determines your reward in eternity. Not your salvation, that is settled by grace. But how you live today is being recorded for a day when accounts are settled and rewards are distributed. The fifth thing most Christians have completely wrong about heaven is the belief that everyone becomes an anonymous, interchangeable spirit with no personal identity and no relational connections. Many believers quietly fear that heaven means losing the people they love, that relationships dissolve into some kind of collective spiritual existence. But the Bible consistently shows that personal identity and recognition continue into eternity. At the Transfiguration in Matthew 17:3-4, Moses and Elijah appeared with Jesus, and Peter recognized them, even though they had lived centuries before him. They were identifiable. They were themselves. 1 Thessalonians 4:17-18 describes the reunion of believers at the return of Christ and then gives an instruction that only makes sense if recognition continues. "And so we will always be with the Lord. Therefore, encourage one another with these words."
Encourage one another because you will be reunited with the people you lost. The comfort Paul is offering is not abstract theological comfort. It is the comfort of genuine reunion, seeing, knowing, and being with the specific people you loved on earth. Luke 16:23 records the rich man in Hades recognizing Lazarus across the divide. If identity persists even in separation from God, how much more will it persist in His presence? You will know your family. You will know your friends. The relationships that mattered on earth will not be erased. They will be perfected. You will not lose the people you love. You will find them again, without the pain, the misunderstanding, and the separation that marked those relationships on earth. Heaven does not erase love. It completes it.
The sixth thing most Christians have completely wrong about heaven is the assumption that they already have a reasonable picture of what it will be like. They do not. No one does, because the Bible itself says that heaven contains realities that exceed the capacity of human language, human imagination, and human experience to describe. 1 Corinthians 2:9 states this explicitly, "No eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the heart of man imagined what God has prepared for those who love Him." Your best imagination of heaven is still below what God has actually prepared. The greatest sermon ever preached about heaven has not captured it. The most beautiful painting, the most moving song, the most vivid description, all of them fall short. Paul himself experienced something of heaven that he was unable to put into words. 2 Corinthians 2:2-4 records his account. "I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven, and he heard things that cannot be told, which man may not utter." Cannot be told. Paul, the most articulate theologian in the New Testament, encountered something in heaven that exceeded his ability to communicate. The images you carry in your head about heaven, the clouds, the gates, the golden streets, are not wrong because they are in the Bible. They are incomplete because the Bible itself says what is there goes beyond what any human mind can contain. Every picture you have is a postcard. The reality is a continent. Your best imagination of heaven is still wrong, not because it is too grand, but because it is not grand enough. God has prepared something that your mind literally cannot hold yet. Every picture you have is a postcard of a continent. The seventh and most important thing most Christians have completely wrong about heaven is what makes heaven heaven. Most people, when they think about eternity, think about what they will receive: the mansion, the crown, the reward, the streets of gold, the absence of pain, the end of suffering, and all of those things are real biblical promises, but none of them are the point. Revelation 21:3 gives the single sentence that defines what makes heaven actually heaven. "Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be His people, and God Himself will be with them as their God." God Himself will be with them. That is the point. Not the streets, not the gates, not the mansions. Him. Psalm 16:11 captures this truth in a verse that most people quote for the wrong reason. "In your presence there is fullness of joy, and at your right hand are pleasures forevermore." In your presence. The joy is not in the location. The pleasure is not in the reward. Both are found in the presence of God, and everything else heaven contains is overflow from that central, all-defining, irreplaceable reality. The person who looks forward to heaven primarily because of what they will receive has missed the entire point. Heaven is not a destination you arrive at. It is a person you finally see face to face, without the veil, without the distance, without the sin that has separated you from the full experience of His presence for your entire life. 1 John 3:2 gives the promise that makes everything else secondary. We shall see Him as He is. That is heaven. Everything else is just the scenery. The streets of gold are not the point. The mansions are not the point. The absence of pain is not the point. The point is Him, face to face, with nothing between you and the God you were made for. That is what makes heaven, heaven.
Here is what I want you to take from this teaching.
The heaven God has prepared is not smaller than what you imagined. It is immeasurably larger. It is not less physical, it is more physical. It is not less real, it is more real than anything you have ever touched, seen, or experienced on this earth. A new earth, a glorified body, meaningful, purposeful work, rewards that reflect your faithfulness, relationships that continue and are perfected, realities that exceed your capacity to imagine. And at the center of all of it, the presence of the God who made you, redeemed you, and brought you home. Colossians 3:1-2 gives the instruction that makes this teaching practical for today, not just theological for someday. If then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. Set your mind on it, not as an escape from the present, but as the motivation that transforms how you live in it. The person who genuinely understands what is waiting for them in eternity is the person who lives most faithfully in the present, because they know that every day here is connected to what is being prepared there. Live today like someone who knows what is coming, because what is coming is better than anything this world has ever offered you. Subscribe to Faith Ablaze Network right now and hit that notification bell. We release teachings like this one every single week. Share this video with every believer in your life who thinks heaven is clouds and harps, because what the Bible actually describes is far more extraordinary than what most people have settled for believing. And leave a comment below. Tell me which of these 7 things surprised you the most today. God bless you, and I will see you in the next message.